Hello, and welcome to another episode of Walk the Dog Cinema. I hope everyone's been having a good life so far, and you've enjoyed plenty of movies, and been enjoying spring wherever you're at, and just seeing what's out there. Today, we are going to talk about Alien. I'm kind of in an Alien kick. My first love has always been horror movies. I have a deeply profound knowledge of horror films. Kind of the only horror films I stay away from are the cannibal movies. I'm not into seeing actual animals getting tortured and killed to be put on film, or just the overall essence. My second least favorite is zombie movies, and it has nothing to do with the gore. I just don't like zombies as a monster. I just don't find them terribly frightening, though I do like some zombie movies, but it's kind of the two genres that don't inherently in the horror field don't inherently touch my fancy. But you know, I kind of was one of those guys in the 80s in high school that if you needed to know a horror movie or a horror novel to read, I was kind of your guy to go to. I was really into it all quite through, even going through film school and college. I kind of got more into the action genre just because of John Woo. Obviously, some of my favorite directors like John Carpenter, Peter Jackson are in that genre. So, you know, I kind of was really digging. So I've been kind of on the action movie kick. Wanted to do Aliens, but I decided since HBO kind of has all the director's cuts, I'm doing the Alien run here. And it's kind of interesting because Alien, of all of them, was one that kind of actually had to grow on me, because as a young guy, I only saw Alien in bits and pieces. It wasn't one of those movies where I saw it all fully. I saw it here and there, bits and pieces. So I really didn't get into Alien until after Aliens. And Aliens is kind of one of my all-time top favorite movies of all time. It had sat kind of as my number one for many years, until Jaws kind of took that over. And you can thank film school for that, kind of doing certain classes, and just the overall nature, the script of Jaws and everything else. But Aliens is probably a close second, besides for me with Cameron, besides Terminator, which I actually think on many levels is James Cameron's kind of opus. And even though it's kind of almost his like first directorial, that one he created on his own, in that sense. This one, I think he does a great job building on Dan O'Banton's world here with everything, and making it a much different picture than Alien, which I thought, for me personally, kind of blending the horror and action and the sci-fi and all that was really fantastic. So, but yeah, Alien kind of sits in a weird pocket, but today we're going to talk about Alien. So, I got all my duck gear on. My Anaheim Ducks have kind of moved on to the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. I know that has nothing to do with movies and everything, but it's kind of a weird, drizzly morning here. But at the same time, got to represent. I'm a big hockey fan, have been since basically the late 80s, and really got into it when Teemu Selanne came into the league with the Winnipeg Jets. So it's kind of my hockey background, so representing my team I like here. But Alien, yeah, it really kind of sits there. It was one that had to grow on me. you know, I'd seen so many horror movies by the time I actually saw this one. Now, the crazy thing is I always remembered the poster as a kid, like going to the theater, you know, late 70s, early 80s. I don't know if it was reissues, but I absolutely remember, you know, no one in space can hear you scream. You had the egg, you know, you have the kind of 70s letterhead, sci-fi kind of thing, but the poster always kind of creeped me out. Always, you know, it really evoked a lot of emotion, like, in you, you know, and it in and of itself, it's kind of genius even back then. And I remember the movie being really big. It's kind of crazy because, you know, I probably was only in kindergarten, first grade when that hit, and, you know, that dates me, I get it, but at the same time, it's kind of interesting because I remember kids talking about it, which is crazy to think, you know, like, talking about it from their parents because of the kitchens, the dinner table scene with John Hurt, you know, and the alien chest burster and all that. So, like, you know, the movie had that scene. It was kind of like, you know, like how Scanners had the head blowing up, and parents would talk about it. Kind of different day and age, you know, you're talking around your little kids, I mean, about these really horrific scenes, but it was something that was kind of mentioned, like, people would talk about it. It was kind of one of those, like, oh, am I going to catch it on HBO? Because HBO was this kind of a thing getting going here, or if you had Select TV or whatever, like, it was one of those kind of movies, like, a scene that you wanted to catch because you knew you couldn't really watch it because, you know, your parents would talk about it, but they wouldn't inherently let you watch these films per se. But you always kind of wanted to check what was so scary about the scene that was scaring the adults. It was kind of always an interesting thing. And, you know, different day and age. I mean, I don't know if kids nowadays think like that. I don't inherently think we inherently talk about scenes in that regard about movies around our kids as much. I definitely didn't when they were younger. I mean, my kids are much older now, but it's kind of an interesting time to put it in place, you know, when I share with my kids about, like, my childhood and stuff. But I did see the chest burster scene before I ever saw Aliens. I knew that, like I said, bits and pieces. I don't know if I caught it on HBO. We didn't have it on VHS, or my dad didn't copy it from HBO or Cinemax or any of those things. So I don't also know if I maybe caught it on TV or an edited version. In terms of my first ever run through of that, probably not that scene, but, you know, like I said, my memory's fuzzy with that, but I always saw it in bits and pieces. I always kind of remember the smile, the kill of the mechanic guy. Darn it, I forget the actor's name. But you know, I kind of always remember, like, the androidish aspects of it. So, you know, spoilers and stuff. I mean, if you don't know, Ash is an android by now. Even if you've never seen the film, I get it. But at the same time, you know, I'm kind of doing this as more a look at how we feel about the films that we watch, or maybe thinking about Alien in a different manner, even in relation to Aliens and all that. But crazy thing is like I said, bits and pieces, you know, and saw Aliens right in junior high. I mean, that came out right as I was hitting junior high. So that movie was just crazy, off the wall. You know, it was thrilling, and it has great characters. Doug Sigourney Weaver, in that regard, seen her in some other things, but really liked her. Ripley, she's awesome at the end. You had the alien queen, you know, so Aliens was kind of like really that foray into that world. So believe it or not, I don't think, kind of putting it here, but I kind of watched Alien for the first time all the way through prior to Alien 3. Like I said, even watching Aliens didn't make me want to go back and really watch Alien. There were so many other horror movies and trying to catch up to. I was really into, like I said, Finding Peter Jackson, Bad Taste, and Dead Alive or Brain Dead, however you want to go about it. I was eating up the Phantasms and a lot of the old slasher stuff that I kind of missed in the early 80s. I was getting into. Then you had a lot of releases of Stephen King stuff. So I was eating up a lot of bad stuff and so Alien kind of got pushed back. I was totally into, I loved Predator 2, even with the alien head. Alien in and of itself wasn't like this crazy thing for me as even a horror fan. But you have, I finally took the time to watch Alien all the way through sometime in high schoolish. And, when you kind of consume so much horror or this, and then you see Alien and you kind of don't have the perspective of really what Alien it was or is in the time it came. I mean, we're talking about 1979. Nothing had ever been seen like it. I kind of knew the xenomorph by this time, so the shock of it in Alien, everything kind of got subverted. And so the first time I saw it was just kind of like, it's okay. I mean, it's pretty light on the stalking, or kind of when you think of Aliens. I mean, even Alien 3 really unleashes the alien in much different manner. So even when you put it to that, on one level, it seems so tame, so it's kind of an interesting aspect to the film. But after going through film school and stuff, revisiting the movie kind of made me appreciate it more. Ridley Scott comes from a set designer background, just like James Cameron. It's really kind of crazy how the two guys made some really great sci-fi movies, and they came from this set designer background because the details of their sets are amazing. I mean, if you think of Terminator 2, even how it's gritty, but all the details within that is super important. But Ridley Scott with Blade Runner and some of his other movies for sure are very crisp in that. And Alien evokes a lot of that. It's wet, it's sticky. It has this kind of mood to it that just didn't exist in that day and age. Especially that 70s, late 70s, early 80s sci-fi really felt dated. I love it because it feels dated, and there's aspects of Alien that feels really dated, but within that datedness, he really captures this kind of neo-noir, mechanical grittiness. Everything's kind of rusted, and you think, wow, with water, like things are breaking down and breaking apart, and this crazy creature just kind of is, and it's a force of nature. It doesn't get explained all that well. I kind of like that. It just is, and it just unleashes, and it comes after you. But the crazy thing is Ridley Scott gets a lot of merit for this, but the real kind of thing with it is the producer Stewart, and then Dan O'Bannon, who wrote the script, who really kind of created this world. And a lot of it is ambiguous, and obviously it got built on, and I'm not going to talk about Prometheus and all that, because whatever Ridley Scott was going at kind of demystifies Alien on so many levels. But at the other time, when you really watch it, Alien is not a movie you can see in pieces. You absolutely have to watch the whole beginning setup, the quietness, the emptiness of space. That tagline, no one in space, no one can hear you scream. That mood is evocative throughout the whole movie. I mean, it is the theme, you know, and it feels very lonely. But when they hit LV424, well, you know, whatever it is, see, even I kind of, it wasn't important, but you know, they hit and they get down to the explorers, you know, that spaceship, and they see kind of the space jockey in his telescope or chair or whatever, and you kind of have his chest all busted open. I mean, there's some like real evocative emotion to this, because that had never been seen back then. You know, H.R. Geiger did the creation of this monster, but even a lot of the set designing and artwork and all that was done all from him, and how they transpose that, you know, that first scene when you see all the eggs and then one cracks open, and just the timing of everything, from, you know, the first 7 minutes of the movie's quiet. There's no dialogue, and it's just images and people waking up, and then you have a nice scene around the dinner table. Like, it's very mindful in its economy of building this tension, but at the same time, like, using noise. You know, we got the winds of the planet, and then the stillness with the egg room, and just kind of the lighting, and it all seems surreal and dreamlike, but kind of nightmarish and large and expansive, and we're really just like little bugs in this expansive world. I mean, every shot is set up and such, you know, Nostromo, small ship hauling this huge, you know, ore facility behind it that collected all of this mineral. I mean, expansiveness of that, you know, it was all done purposefully to kind of show how small we are in this vast galaxy, and to create that sense of loneliness. So when we get to Ripley all by herself, the weight of the universe, you know, the expanded, I mean, just the weight of everything, space and all this against this one creature feels huge. And, you know, and it's those really quiet moments on how Ridley Scott plays with the tension, not using music, and defines that movie. And that's really where the scares come from, is just that, you know, those moments. You know, the dinner table scene, the chest burster, is, I mean, set up because of the beginning and how the face hugger gets John hurt. And like I said, it builds and builds and builds. And so one part has to be seen with another. It's not a movie that you can kind of just come into and be like, oh yeah, this makes sense. Because essentially it's a haunted house movie. You know, replace the alien with a ghost and you get the structure of a haunted house movie. And it evokes those kind of emotions where, you know, something moves off screen. And, you know, Ridley Scott does that. I mean, you just see the alien's tail kind of move in the chains, or it's just hanging there and it's kind of adapting to its environment. Same thing with the ending when Ridley's on getting out while the Nostromo is going to blow up. And, you know, there's a shot there that you can kind of see its head and you think, oh my gosh, I think the alien's there. You know, and until it really moves, you don't kind of know, but you know, our brain tells us. I mean, it's an amazing shot, and it evokes so much emotion, and I think that's where like Alien really hits the ground. Like, if you've never thought of it that way, kind of look at it like it's a haunted house movie. It's a movie, you know, things that go bump in the night. It's not a stalker film. It's not a bug film. It's, you know, Aliens turned it into a bug hunt. That's not what this movie is. This is an adaptable living weapon, but in reality, it's a ghost. It hides. It's in chains. It's an adaptable entity that we can't define. It's almost preternatural. It's preternatural. It has acid for blood. You know, it has these elements that literally shouldn't exist together, and it does. You you can really see how, like, Dan O'Bannon, like some of the cut scenes, like in the director's cut, because I'm coming off the director's cut, even though with Alien, you can see there's 3 different cuts of it. There's a theatrical, there's kind of this director's cut, and then there's this other little middle ground between the 2. And they all feel the same, really. There's a little bit more gore in the director's cut on certain levels. But however you watch it, it doesn't change anything, unlike Aliens or Alien 3. You don't need extra clarity or more with the characters or whatever. But I hadn't known if I had ever watched the director's cut. I found out I have it on my Blu-ray, didn't even realize it. But I had seen it, so kind of watched all 3 cuts, but it all kind of intermingles. But coming off the director's cut, like, there's a sequence where it shows Tom Skerritt's character, cocooned up, and the mechanic guy kind of getting turned into a pod. And when you think about that from just a kind of molecular level, like why and how these aliens survive, I'm glad they kind of cut it. It really not important to theatrical. And then obviously it changes the whole alien queen thing, which I actually think is kind of genius in the one sense that, it kind of makes them hive mind and all that stuff. And I don't inherently know if that strips it. I've had people tell me that it kind of ruins Alien in terms of just its structure as this great, adaptable, survivable entity. I kind of see that. I kind of see that argument. But I kind of don't think it inherently ruins Alien. When you get to understand Alien as a piece of a building block, there's a lot of ambiguity in the film, but even with taking that, when you think of what they were thinking as a scriptwriter or a filmmaker, that lends more credence to the haunted house aspect of it. And I think that's kind of Alien genius in that regard. I mean, it's kind of like we can look at it as ectoplasm, and just like how ghosts, how this thing keeps staying being a ghost and survives and moves on with its kindred, it does all these kind of impossible things. So, and everything's defensive or in and of itself to replicate and move on and survive as a species. And that's just its goal. And it's just this perfect kind of entity that just, like Jaws, eats, sleeps, and makes new aliens, kind of thing. Like, it's kind of taking that concept a little bit and flip it on its head, and you get this kind of great haunted house movie in space. So kind of an ingenious notion there that I really love about Alien. And like I said, it evokes those kind of, you're watching the background for things to move. The jump scares aren't your normal ones, though it does have the cat jumping out at you, which is kind of funny because that's hugely popular in horror films, but definitely in haunted house movies, all that tension is built to do that stuff. And so I get to the last moment of that at all is the Ripley character, and we get into strong female characters, and so it's all Sigourney Weaver's success on that level. She's a great character. Crazy thing is Ripley was written with a man in mind. Sigourney Weaver and forget the other actress's name, but they were reading for Lambert, then kind of read for Ripley with Dan O'Bannon there, and they kind of saw something there, and so they had both women read for Ripley, believe it or not. So thinking about how it all goes about, both women actually read for Ripley. Sigourney Weaver got it, the other actor Scott Lambert. And when you think about it in terms of space, Lambert acts a little bit more especially in the 70s, typical female in one sense, but not. Like, she stands up to Ripley. She smacks her. She's pissed at her. You know, it's just a different emotional side of it. She gets the most blood sprayed at her in the chest burster scene. But two women do an amazing job, you know, as strong female characters. But, you know, kind of Ripley, you know, we had Jamie Lee Curtis doing the final girl thing. They weren't really going for the final girl because, like I said, a male was kind of thought of in the Ripley spot. So when you look at it, it would have been, you know, the co-captain, basically. Even though Tom Skerritt had top billing, your top billing person, a la like Alfred Hitchcock, spoiler alert, doesn't make it. It wasn't a final girl thing until this. And, you know, and we really hadn't developed into that in the slasher films or horror movies in general yet. At this moment, you still would get sometimes male, female survivors and stuff. And so this does have a mark of setting that trend a little bit with Halloween. And you don't get there without strong performances from that. So it's rather amazing to see how that transpires. So check out Alien. It's an amazing movie. It's one that's grown on me. Look at it from a different perspective, and maybe if you aren't an admirer of it, you'll admire it some more. So, but if you admire it already, maybe there's something in there that you'll kind of look at it differently and even appreciate it, and it just keeps pushing it up, because that movie has grown on me, and it really sets a standard that everyone else followed, that you know, maybe Cameron really only kind of hit. Fincher tried, and just with all the meddling, you know, he just couldn't hit it. But we'll see how it all goes. But yeah, enjoy it. Have a good one, everyone.